All right, Dom, welcome, mate. Let's get started. Let's get straight into it. Tell us about your first experience this year at the Masters.
Mate, before I do that, thank you so much for having me on. First pod that you do. Really excited that you've chosen me to be your first guest. I know how well you're going to do this. You're a superstar of Australian young golf professionals, mate, and really honoured to be your first episode. Let's get into it. The Masters, unbelievable experience. Probably like yourself, mate. You've heard all your life about this place, and to actually go there, just incredible. Describe it is what I've told people since I've been home. You've got to go and see it for yourself because everything that everyone had ever told me, yes, it's all true, but it's times 10. It's just an incredible experience.
Yeah, that's and how did you get there? So Lucas won in Bermuda, right?
Yeah, and then I was really fortunate. So we actually went up 2 weeks earlier prior to the Masters. Richie Smith and Minwoo Lee, Lucas, myself, and Pewey, Lucas's caddy, and we spent 2 days there. So the first Lucas was allowed to take one guest. So the first day he took Pewey, and they had a great day. Looked at the course, and then I went the following day. We played 9 holes, had an absolute poured down for about 2 hours, which was great. Went to the clubhouse, had a lovely lunch, went back out, played the other 9. Went into the pro shop, mate. Now, I didn't realise at the time how difficult it is to get Augusta National merch out of the pro shop. Like,
Really?
I think it's impossible to get in this pro shop. When we went back at the Masters, no, you're not allowed in the pro shop.
Really?
So all the logo stuff was National Golf Club, and I've got a couple of
Ah,
t-shirts with things. But when you go back for the Masters, like the merch is incredible, but it's all got the Masters stuff on it. So if I ever get back to Augusta National outside of the Masters, I'll be going back into that pro shop and spending about 10 times of what I spent that day.
I tell you what, when Lucas qualified, I was so excited. We'll get into that victory for sure. Qualified, and I sent you a text message, and I said, surely Lucas needs a shoe cleaner or someone to just spread some butter on his sandwich. Surely he got how there on the range. Like when you first what was the difference in the actual venue itself when you went there for a practice round 2 weeks prior to the actual tournament itself? What stood out to you the most as in the difference there?
I think the crowds just give it so much definition. So when you stand up
Yeah.
at the clubhouse and look out over the property, you can actually see quite a lot of the property and a lot of the holes.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks later, when you go back and the ropes are up and like of all events, mate, there's so many people, every fairway's lined. Just the definition of the holes, it just looked and just the atmosphere. I mean, I've never been to a sporting event in my life where everyone is just there enjoying every minute. I think everyone knows how special it is to be there, and
Yeah.
everyone just is enjoying every minute. It's and to you, mate, and everyone listening, if you ever get the opportunity, you have to do it.
Yeah. It's definitely happening. That's for sure. Hopefully I'll be standing behind someone on the tee as well. But how did Herbie go?
Missed the cut by a couple.
Why did he miss the cut? What do you reckon?
Oh, where do you want me to start? I think you said you want to do this podcast and try and get it in an hour. I
Was
mean,
there a significant moment that maybe it was the first
he,
experience of the short game, or what do you think?
he drove it really poorly that
Did
week.
he?
Let's be honest. He putts, mate. He's number one PGA Tour putting stats this year. Actually, I
I
think Brian,
heard.
but
Yeah.
he's world class. Like he's number one putter inside 12 feet in the world. He loves those greens. He's chipping, pitching. He's so good around the greens. He will play really well around that place over the next 10, 15 years. He just drove it really poorly and didn't give himself the opportunity. He actually drove it that 2 days to only miss a cut by 2. He actually played pretty good other than that. Now we'd sort of struggled this year, just with his driver setup. I was over there probably 6 weeks ago. We did a lot of work with Michael
Mm,
Neff, who created Gears.
yeah.
Learned a lot about Langer with his driver and setup, and we've since changed the way that drive is set up, and the first event back with that drive was the US PGA, finished 13th, drove it a
Yeah.
hell of a lot better. So we've sort of turned the corner, I think, with his driving. He did struggle a lot earlier in the year with that new driver,
Is
but
would yeah. Would you
yeah,
say would you say would you say Augusta, right, demands a lot more off the tee than a normal PGA Tour event? Like you see statistics around PGA Tour events where people can play really well when not hitting a whole lot of fairways. Does it demand more off the tee from you?
it does, because you have to be in the right positions to
Yeah.
even get it onto the green in the right plateau, if you like. Like the greens are so elevate, like they're quite big, but you've got to be in the right sections of the greens. And to
Yeah.
get it onto the right sections of the greens, you've got to be hitting it from the right spots on the fairways.
All right.
If you're out of position off the tee, it makes it really, really difficult.
All right. Let's I wanted to talk about the Masters the whole time. I'm really good. Who's the most on the driving range? Who did you see and just thought, geez, this person hits it well? Did you see anyone that stood out to you apart from Herbie?
Tiger Woods, have you heard of that bloke? He swings it all right, and he stood out. I mean, that event, I mean, he made his comeback, and the hype around him at that Masters was just incredible. And to see him walk onto the practice tee, and just the way I could watch him do everything, whether it's chipping, like when he's at an event and he's on the tee with you, mate, everyone's just looking at him, because
Yeah.
you just learn so much by watching the way he does things, and he's
Mhm.
still hitting it so good, mate.
I think a
So
lot of
yeah, I
people
mean,
yeah, you go.
go on.
Oh, I think a lot of people forget with these well, what they don't understand with these greats, right, in all sports, it's their mannerisms and their behaviors and what they're doing just outside of the golf swing. You know, when you go to the driving range and hit balls, right, we all see Tiger's golf swing that goes for a second and a half, right? But he's there for an hour. Say he's hitting an hour's worth of balls. We only get a couple of those couple of second clips of what he's doing. It's the purposefulness and and how he's the whole time, isn't it? Like everything he does is for a reason.
Yeah, I think it's something that really, so many of the amateur golfers, they put so much time. We've all seen them at our clubs, and they're down there, 3-4 times a week, spending hours on the range. And what I tend to say to them is, "What's your purpose today? What are you trying to achieve
Mm.
out of your practice session?" And look, any guy at Augusta, you're playing the Masters, those guys aren't there unless they are getting everything out of every minute of their practice, and they've got a purpose. They know what they're practicing, why they're practicing it, and you're right. It stands out so much that everything these guys are doing at the top level is just done so properly, so professionally.
It's so deliberate.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've been coaching Lucas for a long time, but one story for me that really stands out. I think it's a great story, of the tour coaches is. So what? Let's like tell everyone, explain to everyone what happened before the Bermuda Championship. So, bit of an SOS to you, and you flew over to the States mid COVID. All these quarantines have happening for you, and you get over there and what within PGA Tour. Do you want to
Mate,
share that story with
I'm not
us?
going to take that much credit out of this. I mean, I could, but I mean, like yeah, he was struggling. He'd missed a couple of cuts, first two cuts on the PGA Tour, and yeah, said, "Look, I'm struggling." At that stage, he wasn't great with communicating with me, sending swings, and I'd actually watched him a little bit play the prior weeks, and noticed, things within his golf wasn't sort of overly happy, and they'd got sort of past breaking point, I guess. I talk a lot about parameters
Yeah,
within a golf swing that we can all get. We don't have to swing it perfectly all the time, but as long as we stay within parameters, whether it's a putting stroke or a golf swing, I think is really important. I use that a lot with my students, and I'd seen that he'd got outside of that. He was far too sharp, far too far behind him, taking the club away, and other things. So, I mean, I got over there and we did a couple of really big training weeks, and we worked on a lot of things. And like, you got to credit him, his ability to so quickly make the changes, get everything back to baselines where they should be, and
Mm,
then go and see later on a Sunday, last nine
mm,
holes, keep trusting it and play the way he did. I mean, you know, yeah, I might have helped him a lot with that 2 weeks prior, but I mean, he's just so talented and to be able to, you know, play the way he did that 4 days in the wind in those conditions around
it's
Bermuda
crazy.
and get the win.
For
It
me,
was incredible.
and I hear where you're coming from there, right? And a key word that I use a lot, especially with my subscribers, right, is trust. You got to trust me. You got to trust the process and you've got to trust me. So for you to make your way over there and, spend that time with Herbie and for him to trust it, that quickly, shows the relationship that you two kind of guys have there. He hit some clutch shots coming down. It was pouring down rain. And I even used that example on the last hole there. I think he hit like a knockdown 9-iron or 8-iron into the green, and it didn't look like much of a shot, but in that circumstance on a Sunday in the 72nd hole in that position, that's a shot to pull off in the way he did it. Trust, and
Yeah, I mean, that front of the green,
mm,
8 yards short of that flag, you come back down 30 feet off the green, really hard up and down. You hit it 10 yards past the pin, you're on the back tier. And like, I'd seen guys that day put it off the front of the green. So, I mean, he had to land it within 6 yards, basically, out of that flag. And
but
he's
to
hitting
paint it,
9-iron.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's uphill, massive uphill slope. So everything. There's so many things that you're right. It was not as easy as what he made it look. And just
mm,
I remember watching. I was walking up. I was sort of probably front of the green. Up fairway up the slope, and remember watching that shot in the air and just hoping like hell that he'd done a good job. And when that landed, I knew he had it, and it was just the greatest feeling of my life to
mm.
just accomplished so much together after sort of 12, 13 years of working with a guy. And I was just so proud of, the work we've done, the work he'd put in, and just for him to get the reward out of what he'd done throughout his career was just so rewarding.
Level. So to put into perspective, he had a one-shot lead heading up the last, was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Danny was maybe coming second, and Danny lead pump driver up the
Correct.
last, didn't he? And then Herbie
Yeah.
stood
So,
up
I
and
mean, yeah. So, if Herbie made par and Danny made birdie, yeah, playoff. So, the green and hit it to like 6 feet. So, at that stage, Herbie just had two putts for the win. And yeah, so as soon as he hit it on the green, mate, to 8 feet, he had it done.
so obviously you're based in Australia, right? So you're based in Queensland and Herbie's based in the States in the PGA Tour. How many times a year do you go over and see him?
As needed is probably
Yeah.
the easiest way to explain that. So, I mean, like through 2020, 2021, I did travel. I did do hotel quarantines, and I was away for 9.5 weeks at the end of last year. It's my job, it's my role. I'm happy to do it. In an ideal year, mate, I might travel over there 3, 4 times for 2 to 3 weeks, I guess, is what we've agreed at, and sort of see it. Now, in saying that, as it worked out this year, with Bay Hill and then the players, and then he had a week off, and then he had the world match play at Austin, then a week off, and then the rang me and said, look, it just makes sense to do 6 weeks, and rather than sort of come back and forth. And I was like, yeah, cool. It makes a lot of sense. So since getting home from the Masters, I've even done 2 more trips back over that stage. I'm sort of thinking I'll be home for 6 to 8 weeks at the moment. But as I said, mate, it's what I do. It's what I love doing. I love helping, Herbie and the other two players that I work with over there in the States. You get a bit used to it. It's just a flight. You get used to the jet lag's probably the worst part.
So
But,
how how do you guys stay in touch? Do you use a Skillet app? You do a bit of online coaching with the guy with Herbie in particular?
yeah, we do. lot of videos going back and forth through Skillist. A lot of FaceTime calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just Herbie, the whole team.
Yeah.
So Pewey, the caddy, we speak quite regularly. Tom Boys at Upgame, we speak a lot. He's our stats guy, and then Jamie Glazier is actually over there at the US Open at the moment. So I'm speaking to him most days. So just a heap of communication, Toby. And one of the things that as well as I do, using the Skills app for online coaching is the subscribers we have that communicate really well with us, the
Mm-hmm.
gains that they make and the improvement that we can get out of those guys is just incredible. The ones that sort of they send you the 8-iron swing from today and that's all it says. It's
Yeah.
very hard to help those guys. So
I
I
couldn't
mean,
agree more.
I say that just to my online students first up. I just tell them, mate, if this is going to work, and it will work if you communicate and help me. And it's the same with Herbie. It's no different whether you're working with a top 50 player in the world or a guy starting out, 6 months into his golfing journey. It's all
Yeah.
about, the better job I can do of helping them, really resonates in how they communicate to me what their feels are, what they're doing, everything else.
That communication, it is key, at all levels. I'm lucky enough to coach, a lot of good players. Obviously, not on the PGA tour, but I've got a lot of good players as well, all the way through to beginner golfers. And I think that the best communicators are people who are sharing the reality of what's going on, what stay consistent in the information they're giving you, right? Then you can get a really good reading and make some really good decisions based on what they're giving you. And it doesn't matter who the player is. If they're just sending you a couple of 8-iron swings saying chunked it, you're not going to get
Yeah.
anywhere. You really aren't. And that communication, and I say this to people, like, we're experts in communication, right? We do this daily, 24/7, where the student doesn't not be a very good communicator. They might be introverted. They might not know what's needed. So it does take a lot of educating around that. And once the student realizes that it God, it makes our jobs easier too, because they nearly give you the answer in their information provided. Or you can see their golf swing, you can read their comments, and pretty much get an answer from them. I'm very big on based on performance, right? We use performance as an indicator. So for you, like if you're coaching your tour players well, if they're winning, things are going good. You know what I mean? Or if they're getting money or scoring well, that's how you base on performance. Where I think the recreational golfer, you probably agree with it, gets caught up in the technique side of things too much. It's on
Okay.
performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's two things. One thing you said there, which I think was really important, that they need to be honest.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, they, I'm hitting driver this far and I'm doing this and I hit X amount of greens. And we all know, mate. I'm like, no, come on, mate. Be more
Mm.
honest. I want to help you. And then I guess the other thing you talked about was the communication. And I've got guys that use the voice message a lot now
Mm-hmm.
on skills,
Yeah.
and I've got
Yeah.
guys that seriously they type out a page,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. I don't mind. I say whatever works for you,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's just recording messages, whether it's you jumping in front of the video and just talking or showing me, or whether it's typing stuff out. I really have no preference. The preference is what works for them. And
Yeah.
as I said, I've got guys that do it and girls that do it very different ways. But as long as I get the information, as you're aware, we can help them.
So when you spoke about technical parameters with Herbie in particular, do you have technical parameters with everyone who you teach? Like, do you like to see things work in a certain way, or how do you teach? Do you have a bit of a technique, or do you just like to work with the student, create a matchup, or which way do you go with it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I do. I mean, I'm always learning. I'm 48 years old now, mate, and every year I'm coaching. Every year I'm out on the PGA Tour, I'm learning so much. Such a great opportunity to learn from and this sort of thing. And if someone had said to me 5 years ago, do you teach? I said, no way. I teach everybody
Yeah,
so differently.
yeah,
And then you start thinking about it, and I hear people say to me, "Oh, geez." I saw that person play and I saw that student play, and geez, they swing it quite similar. And it
Yep.
got me thinking a lot. I went, yeah, they do a bit. And I
Yeah.
guess it's just, I don't think I teach a model swing. I teach people very differently, but there's tendencies, things that I like to see within a golf swing.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
love ball strikers. I love people.
Mhm.
I'm so big on, strike.
Yeah.
I work a lot around that. I like to see, path and face within, say, 2 degrees of neutral,
Mhm.
because I think, what makes golf difficult for so many, Toby, is that you're right. But
Mhm.
the more
Mhm.
extreme those wrongs
Yeah.
are, if you like, the
Yeah.
harder it is to do it consistently. So, yeah, I mean, a path going 6 degrees outside to in matched up with a face that's 3 degrees open. Yeah, we're hitting the ball on the green.
Yeah, so
But
what
to
you're talking
do
about
that,
there, right? So the outside to in is someone who slices the ball and they're looking down and their divot's heading left, right?
correct,
Swinging, and you're measuring that through TrackMan or GC Quad or whatever device you're using. And when those parameters get too wide, like when you're swinging too far across the ball, it's difficult to manage the club face and be consistent, because you're also bringing strike into play, aren't you? Because if
correct.
you feel too much, then you're going to deviate it too much, aren't you? And
Yeah, and
and
then you're out
yeah,
of attack, mate. And then when you get the wind off the left, there's just so many things, and that's why I'm pretty strong on making things within those parameters. And I guess it all depends on whether they're a beginner player, the parameters are bigger. I work with a lot of college players, good players. The parameters get a lot smaller. So
yep,
same sort of stuff with putting. Herbie, we've done for so many years. I contribute a lot to why he's so good day in, day out with his putting stroke. Is he has
yeah,
check-in points that so often, daily. We set up he's checking his eye position, he's checking his ball position. We know that when all those things where they should be, baselines are right, then he's rolling it really good and he's going to hold a lot of putts. And that's based around speed
do,
control stuff we do. So,
do you think
it's probably a really important lesson for club
mm,
golfers.
do you think as well with Herbie in that position, just back on the putting, I'm going to come back to that compression thing in a minute, with that putting as well and having those parameters in place, right? So when he looks down at that mirror pre-game or when he's training and he can actually measure where things are supposed to be in regards to eye line, and he's getting feedback given to him from, is it Pewee? Does that also kind of give him this bit of this confidence that, like, I'm engaged, I'm on today, I'm going to hold everything? Where if he's not checking that and not, then he's not gaining that confidence and getting that. Would that be the case, you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you know, we only do probably 5-10 minutes. He might hit 10, but he knows that when he's checking all those things within that station, that everything, as you say, is spot on. And then we're
So
trying to get him out of that technique mode of thinking and get into more performance training stuff before he then goes and plays.
I love it. I love
I think
measuring and
that's
I
really
love
important.
getting feedback. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
feedback. I love it,
I think
especially
that's one of
visual.
the, I see in club golfers, that that they struggle with, or that the biggest mistake in club golfers or social players is they don't do enough performance work. So they might do all the
Mm,
technique work and their swings look better, but then they
mhm.
go and play golf and they wonder why they can't do it on the golf course. And it's something
Yeah,
that I see so important on the PGA Tour that guys do so well. Yeah, you see them, Scotty Scheffler's got his swing guide on at the Masters, and he's
yeah,
on the range doing technique stuff, but then that comes off, and then you'll see him hitting different clubs,
yeah.
targets, and he's trying to get out of that technique mode and more into what he's going to be doing on the golf course, with this wind off here and that target there. And, I just don't see that enough of the players in a club level, Toby, do anything like that. They're on a range, the mat's lined up this way, they hit 3 clubs and 10-minute practice session,
Yeah.
all at the same target, and then wonder why they can't go and hit shots on the golf course with ball below their feet, wind off here,
Yeah.
different clubs. It's something I think, I try and get my players to do so much of that.
But that's our role as coaches, right? There's an education gap there missing. It's not sexy to save and like and comment on a post where someone's talking about performance on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. No one really wants to know. They think the answer is all in technique. And it's interesting enough where I spoke to one of my students a couple of days ago on Zoom, and I said to him, you're practicing, you're hitting half your session block 7-irons. How many of those 155-yard 7-irons around are you getting? He said none. I was like, well, we need to start out, because the recreational golfer, right, they're just playing weekend golf. So we've got to try and get them performance ready at the same time. So it is a little bit different, I guess, in their ways, because they're not playing, PGA Tour events, so they don't have that thinking in that right place as well. But that Scotty Scheffler with the swing guide, to me, listening to you talk about Herbie's putting parameters, it's probably within that as well. Probably gets that grip on, makes that hinging. So he's got the yellow swing guide that he puts onto his club. It's actually got one of those rubber grip things that generally beginners start with, that helps you with that molded grip, doesn't it? And he's probably just
Correct.
making a few swings there, feeling of that swing guide, which I use a lot actually, landing into that left forearm there and going, I'm on today, I'm synced up. And then he just goes about his crazy footwork and gets back into field mode.
Correct. And he's got the grip, that grip, that molded grip. I mean, he's had that on for ages. So he's
Yeah.
just checking his grip every day is where it should be.
Yeah.
That for him, it's pretty neutral. The swing guide's getting the club going back into the right spot, with the face opening the right amount, and he knows once he's got all that, off he goes.
It's pretty amazing run that Scotty Scheffler's having though, huh? But let me get back to that compression thing, right? Because I think it's something that is very well misinformed with a lot of people. You see people in the driving range trying to develop more shaft lean. Okay, we could use that as a term, and trying to compress the golf ball. But I see a lot of them just doing it with just trying to push the handle down and low, and not rearranging their body in the right position. For me, I've got something thinking, but I want you to tell me, like, recreational golfer, if they're trying to get that shaft lean angle, trigger.
You're spot on when you say that. They're trying to hit down the ball. Well, if their body's not in the right position at impact, they can try as much as they like. It's never going to happen. So,
Yeah.
a term that Lucas and I think I've heard it quite a few times, but we've talked about covering the ball for years. Now, to explain what I guess we mean by that is, that as we transition from the backswing into the downswing, and the body's uncoiling and hips are turning through the ball, that the chest is working through impact and actually feeling like it's moving forward to then be able to, allow the hands to get to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest misconceptions to me, and I hear this a lot, is, I don't want to get lateral. Now, I
Yes.
say to so many people, turning, you're not.
Yes.
All right. So for me,
Okay.
I get so far ahead of it if they're still turning, because they can cover the ball, they can get their hands ahead of it, they can compress it. Now, I
That's
don't see many.
speed dependent though. If
Yeah,
you
we'll see.
if you haven't got enough speed, yeah, I understand what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you just see people, get too far ahead of it, and you see 7 out of 10 people sort of too far back through impact, and they're trying to push their hands, but they can't because they're far back, on their trail side.
I tell you one thing for me, which is I've often shared a little bit about, is I'd like to try and share facts on social media, but I think the lead shoulder. So for the right-handed golfer, once they take their backswing, and they start their transition to the downswing, that left shoulder can start working up too early, right? And it can start going into what we call the right side bend. So if the top of the right oblique muscle starting to engage too early, that left shoulder goes up, and that litigates any chance of getting that lateral movement that you talk about, isn't it? That's going to have him hanging back, and then ultimately, it's difficult to explain through, obviously, when that left shoulder goes up too early in the downswing, you're going to see released early to get to the ball. Because if they're trying
Yeah.
to carry shaft lane, they're going to, honk it and hit it too far behind the ball. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really strong, Toby, in my coaching around. I don't like handsy players. I think handsy players are fairly inconsistent players. They'll pass
Mm,
7 holes and then 3 doubles in a row around the back nine because they're so reliant on, whether you want to call it timing. I rather use the word sequencing.
yep.
Um, whereas, I really like releases through body.
Yep.
I grew up, mate, watching Feldo in the mid to late 90s, and no one did it better.
Yeah.
Tommy Fleetwood's a bit like that nowadays, but Feldo, it's like his hands just didn't do anything. His hands and his wrist and therefore his club face just released the club through the ball and
Yeah.
it stayed the same day in, day out, week in, week out, year after year. And you can't miss,
Yeah.
and I love that sort of, yeah, I love that sort of release where it's just
Yeah.
no hands, but just body release through the ball. But your body's got to be in the right position. You got to be using that covering the ball. I think shoulders, as you say, are incredibly important to have your shoulders work impact.
So I think to kind of cap off on that, that's the only technical talk we'll have throughout the session, but I could talk technical golf swing with you all day. But, nearly just put it in a nutshell for the person, right? If they're trying to get more compression to, gather some appropriate amount of speed, and you talk about upper hub, say from your more forward than perceived to have to happen, is essentially hitting a punch shot. Like moving potentially inches behind the ball, avoiding the towel, and trying to hit a punch shot and hit it low. Because for you to get that ball low, you've got to get forward, right? You've got to find a way to do it. And I think more people who hit a hold off punch shot would be such a better golfer. I really agree.
Yeah, mate, it's so funny. I actually get students quite often. I say to them, "Hey, is there somewhere on your golf course you can drive out or walk out to and drop 5 balls in the rough where you've got to hit a shot like with a 7 iron, and punched under a canopy of a tree? And if
Yep.
there is, go out there and just punch some shots under that and just come back and tell me how you go." And every time, wow, like they flew onto the green and the flight and the sound and but for me, Toby, you've got to know someone to hit it low, to hit that punch shot for them to go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's the sensation,
Mm,
and then often if I'm with them, I'll film them and I'll show them. I'll say, look what your body's doing here to hit that punch shot. So
mhm,
I'm pretty big on forcing change, and
mm,
getting them in a position where I'm forcing them to hit a shot, and
yeah.
then saying, right, to hit that shot, let's have a chat about what you've done. What were your feels to do that?
Mhm,
Get back on the range and hit 5 shots. And I want you to feel very much that you've hit that, that you're hitting those same shots that you're hitting under that canopy,
yeah.
and just you change the whole way they understand and feel what they need to be doing within a golf swing to actually compress the ball, shaft
Yeah.
lean, and flight the ball, properly flight the ball.
And when you say force, right, that's just through using something external, create an
Yeah,
external visual for them to, when they're at the range, but if there's a tree branch in front of them, there is. And I think that's a bit of
correct.
the perception that people have in regards to, they think, what the information that tour players are receiving is really, really complicated and it's tricky and it's all this where, I was listening to Sean Foley talk about when he first got Lydia Ko, and don't quote me exactly on this, right? But Lydia Ko, left her previous coach and it was pretty well publicized there, and to her blueprint of when she was 17, right? She was just phenomenal. And in an opposite situation, create an external object. He wanted her to hit over a tree. So he had her at the back of
Yeah,
a range with a 5 iron hitting over a tree. And,
yeah,
I think that people would find that a bit crazy that, he knew that she could react well to that, as most people do, right? They're just
yeah,
reacting to what they've got to do with the task from something external. If I don't do it right, I'm smacking into the tree. Where on the range, they can't really measure that, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like my last trip, Herbie got me up on the Monday to Memorial, and he'd played the Charles Schwab the week before, which was the week after the PGA, and he'd finished 40th or something, but
Yep.
didn't play great. He got me up on the Monday. I remember walking onto the range, and I had a look, and we tend to put TrackMan down to give us figures, but I watched him hit 3 or 4 7-irons, and I could see just his path was getting outside of parameters. He was shallowing out too and having to release it too hard.
He has an
So all
overdraw.
I
So
did,
what to
yeah,
the right and he
all I did
overdraws it.
was I said, mate, just hit me a few fades,
Yes.
hold some up,
Yeah.
some fades.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
basically what I did in the 4 hours or 3 there, was just get him to create a feel and get his understanding around, okay, look at my path, look at even divots. Was on TrackMan, he's like, oh wow, that I didn't realize that, I didn't feel that, so that was it. So you're right. Like, people think that we're working about where this elbow is, and it's
Yeah.
not like that at all. It's particularly a guy like Herbie is very creative and very visual. Like a Bubba.
Yep.
The players are different, obviously, and we coach them in different ways and communicate
Yep.
with them in different ways. But certainly for so many good players and amateur players, force them to hit a shot.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, half the time, they don't even know how they're doing it. And then I'm
Yeah.
talking to them about, right, see what you just did then? What was your
Yeah.
feel to hit that shot? Like, let's try and replicate that now.
And that's why with all my lesson models, right? And you're massive on this. You've taught me a lot of this. And I'm trying to get as much to you as possible. But that one-off half an hour lesson, it just doesn't work, right? Where I've pushed out to mine are minimum hour sessions. And the other day I was giving a lesson, and we trying to find the solution beforehand. Trying to teach the person, trying to educate them on what their golf club's actually doing and their body's doing, right? And then how to change it. I did this whole session, right, of I've got the quad there and the path is like 6 right, and I said, oh, hitting a fade, and he said, I just hit a fade. I said, yes, of course I do. I teach people who overhook it to fade it. I teach people who overfade it to hook it. And he goes, I can do that. Hops up, zeroes out his numbers straight away, dead straight, hits 5 of them in a row. And I said, just hit fades. Shook his hand and said,
Yeah.
see you later. I wasted like 45 minutes of just, over technical thoughts. And should have just told him just to bloody fade it. Hey, let me, I want to talk to you right about, when my playing career finished, right? And I lost that drive. I really loved the actual playing side of it. It got me excited, the competition, the competition side of golf. And now through my players, from someone dropping from 100 to an 80s player, or someone winning an event in India or whatever it is, really gets me going, keeps me up at night. Do you find that's the same case for you? Like, what about your playing career? How did it finish up?
It finished up because I did a traineeship and I loved coaching. Was
Yeah.
basically it. And I was a handy player.
Yep.
And I actually, Australian Trainee Championship 19 whatever it was, 95 6, finished leading third year and got an Australasian Tour card.
Wow.
Played, I think, 3 events, had a few back troubles, but I just wanted to coach. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like you, mate, I just love helping people. I just love educating. It's why I do it. I absolutely love it. And I got into being a club pro at that stage. I was the head professional. I did my traineeship at Wood course down the Sandbelt, and then I went back there as a head pro for 7 or 8 years, and then I was a head professional at Ballarat, which was a really good. It was my own shop and business at that stage, which was, there weren't many of them left in the industry, and so I was a club pro for sort of best part of 20 years, and the industry changed so much in that time, Toby. I started out and was coaching, club fitting mainly, being on the range, and I found by the last couple of years I was in Ballarat, I was in my office more than half the days, more than half the hours in the day. And I was on the computer sending emails, doing handicapping, doing timesheets, ordering stock takes, receipting of goods, all this stuff. That two things. One, I'm not very good at. and two,
Yes.
I didn't enjoy doing. And I just
Yeah.
felt by the end of that, I'm like, I'm losing this love of golf and coaching and everything
Yeah.
else, and I had to get out of it. And it's the best thing I ever did, and pretty courageous. I remember,
Mm.
the word got around the resigned at Ballarat, and he's moving to Queensland and getting out of the industry a little bit. He's going to keep coaching Herbie, but do it without doing that. I don't know where I'd be today. There's no way I'd be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It was really pretty courageous. Like I had no
Yeah.
job to go to, and I resigned at Ballarat, and I've got to stop being this club pro that goes to work every day not enjoying it.
Yeah.
And when you're like that, you're not a good coach. You're not a good boss to your staff, your trainees, and everything. So as I said, looking back, it was the best thing I did because I came up here on the sunny coast and I kept working with a few players, but I actually bought a lawns and gardens business and
Nice.
worked from 7 in the morning till 3 at night, and picked my girls up from school. They were in primary school at that stage, and I did that for like 5 years.
Yeah.
The last couple of years I was doing that. I was traveling a heap with Herbie, as he was forging his way onto the European tour. But absolutely loved it. Gave me an opportunity to spend a lot of time with my daughters and just the game a little bit, or out of that sort of club pro golf club committee mentality, and just
Mm.
as I said, I just fell in love with the game and coaching again. So I think it was incredibly important if I went through those stuff.
So, I met kind of joined at the same time. Have you got any, I guess, success stories that you could share with us, or apart from a tour win or anything like that at all? Like, let's reword that. Let's explain it to the listeners, right, on how a 25 handicapper can actually get to a 10 handicapper through the skiller stat. Like, do you have a success story around that type of situation?
Yeah, it's funny. What's success in online coaching? So
Mm.
I term it. I worked with a guy in Thailand who I reckon he was. When I started months, he was high teens, like let's say 18, 19, and he's down to 6.
Wow.
So played golf for 20 years. And that's the big thing for
Wow.
me. You're not bringing a beginner. He was around that 18, 19 handicap for 20 years. And now he's down single figures, breaking 80, loving the game.
Wow.
Gives me a lot of pleasure and enjoyment. I guess is a 31-year-old guy in the States who reached out about 12 months ago. Good player, played college golf, but it's sort of a bit and was playing 2 and 3. Just wanted to get back into it a bit more, and then he improved a lot, and now actually, he qualified for the Massachusetts Open the other day. He's just playing so well, and he's enjoying it so
Wow.
much. He's actually talking about turning pro. He's
Oh,
like,
wow.
if only I had this 10 years ago, I
Yeah.
would, I would, where would I be? And just to get a guy thinking like that, because you've educated him so much in
Mm.
12 months that he know any of that. And if he had have, I would love to have known where he would be now
Yeah.
if I had worked with him for 12 months. 10. This is a guy that I've done. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we do
It's
Zooms,
crazy.
but incredible to think about that, isn't it? That
It's
you've turned a
crazy.
guy from, an average 2, 3 months who's seriously looking at, and, you know, I think could have the ability. Like, I'm one to say, yeah, we can go through tour school and turn pro, but what's the point if you're making numbers up? I'm like, if you're turning pro, if we're going to do this, mate, I want you to be like on the Corn Ferry tour and
Yeah.
have the opportunity to tour, which is pretty huge, isn't it?
And that's crazy. And that, right, I can see the smile on your face, right, when you talk about it. And, and it's good to be proud as well. You play a role. And I think as well, what's incredible is that people get access to you for such a cheap price and a lot of information. I hear stories of people going to see tour coaches, right? Other like tour coaches is different to you, who are just doing in-person coaching, and they're so difficult to go see, and it's like 450 an hour, where you're actually managing. I use the term managing. You're managing these people's golf. careers, right? And you can send them in different directions. I've got a putting coach that I use. I've got a fitness coach that I can use, and
Yeah.
you really get to manage them. It's really cool, huh?
Yeah, and the best ones, mate, you probably have too. I've got a few subscribers. I've got a 15-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy who are really good players, but you're shaping their life. You're really working with them, not just ensuring that they're playing other sports so that they're becoming athletes as well.
Yeah,
That they're invest in their schoolwork, and via Zoom and even just chats and voice messages, you have a really big role to play, growing into adults and becoming, really good people, which I mean, I
yeah,
love working with the juniors because of all
yeah,
that.
yeah. I do see that you work a lot with juniors. Hey, all right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. I got to ask you, tell me about these side bets that you got with Herbie.
Bets, what do you mean?
Well, I've done a little bit of research. I've spoken to Jamie Glazier and Herbie's caddy, and they tell me about a few little side bets that you often have.
I'm very aware when the screenshot of your message that went to Lucas Herbert got put onto the group chat, and I thought, Toby, I know you well enough to know you're doing your first podcast. You're going to be prepared. So
Yeah.
I did hear you reached out to Team Lucas Herbert. Very clever. Now, look, I know you're probably going to want the story about Mexico, WGC on a Wednesday afternoon after losing a bet and having to eat a chili. And I'm not going to go into that one, but
Tell
to
me the
say that
scenario. So what happened? What did you set?
no, I'm not going to talk about that one because I may have not made it to the bathroom in time, and that's all I'm going to say there. And that's
What bet did you lose? Tell me about the bet. What happened? What was the
I'm always
parameter?
losing. I'm always losing bets to Lucas. Like this is what we do. In for me to get the best out of him, it's like if you can spend half an hour doing that and achieve this, I'll eat a chili. Like there's bets like that every week. I'm out there just to get them to perform, to inspire them, to get them to buy into. Like, mate, if I put if there's a bet and a chili, me eating a chili on the line, but you never see the guy try so hard, because
I
I'm
like
not
that.
real good with spice. All right, so you just take
Really.
it for the team, and yeah, there wasn't a good outcome in Mexico. For anyone listening, Chile in Mexico, it's
All
not
right. Well,
been the
tell,
same since.
can you tell me about the wax legs?
That was Jamie losing a bet at the Masters, so we got to wax his legs.
What was
So
his bet surrounding? So this is basically parameters around Lucas's game.
yeah, look, Herbie's short game is ridiculous. Like it is, he just holds shots. Like, did you see the one at the back at the PGA over the back? I think it was 15 par five, and he's hold it for eagle. I mean, it was just, Cam Smith's mate, his short game's
Mm,
incredible, and because he's top 10 in the world, you get to see a lot of it, and
yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, Herbie's the same, mate. Some of the shots I've seen over the years are
Yeah.
just ridiculous. So I've out. He hits it in spots in practice rounds. He's like, mate, if I hold this, you're eating a chili. And I used to just go, yeah, whatever. Fine, mate. Good luck. And he's done it like 3 times.
No way.
Uh,
Yeah.
but, when you say, yeah, I eat a chili, I mean, the way he processes that shot and gets so involved in that shot, how it's going to come out, the flight, where it's going to land, how it's going to bounce on the green, where it's going to roll down to, what side of the hole it's going to go into. So you can see why we do it, because it gets him so in. And what better form of practice is there to enable someone like that to much in a shot. So that's
Yeah.
why I've done it over the years, that's what works for Herbie. That's how we get him really engaged. So there are that many bets that go on in Team Herbie. And generally, I don't know why that is. I'm trying to
It's
get better at
That's an interesting thing that as well, like, creating those little things. And it's interesting when people's training too, right? where you'll be teaching some kids, they'll just be chipping around and you say, I'll give you $10 if you get this one in. What's the first thing they do? They step back, they read the chip, and then they start training with it. They start doing things properly because there's something on the line. And I guess something for Herbie as well, right, is that he's playing for millions of dollars each week, and he'd get more kick out of watching you eat a chili than, that kind of gets him going. And it's interesting what sacrifices a coach is going to make to get him to get his student going well.
Mate, seriously, he would rather have me eat a chili than put another 100,000 in his pocket. That's ridiculous. But you're right. I mean, that we spoke about that performance training earlier, and that's exactly right. That it's such an important part of training that we do a lot of that. No better way when you're actually putting something on the line. And I do a lot of 5-ball drills where you've got to hit 3 of the 5 through or between this and this, because you do 5 sets of that, for example, and the second set you've hit 2 through and missed 2. Well, that fifth shot, that's as close as you're going to get to the 7-iron into the last when you're playing well. Or the fifth set might be driver between that tree and that tree, and again, it's you're putting that student if they're doing it on their own, they're actually practicing with so much more of a purpose in golf balls. So huge thing for anyone listening is to really do a lot of performance training,
and that's trying to get yourself in a situation to perform, right? Like that's where because these guys only get in those stressful positions if you're in the last few groups of a PGA Tour event, say 4 or 5 times a year. You've had a huge year, right? And you only get 4 or 5 of those opportunities, so you need to make sure that you're ready once you get. And that's
it's trying to
fun.
Yeah, it's trying to be comfortable in the uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And a lot of that also is embracing it. So I was working with a student the other day online, and she said to me, I hate it when people tell me my score. I never want to know my score. If I'm going well, I don't want to know. And I'm like, okay. And this girl's like a 3 marker.
Yeah.
And she says, what happens? She's at college is when they're playing off for spots in the team, the other girls just tell her, oh, you're going well, you're 2 over or you're 1 under, and she goes to pieces. And I spoke to her. I said, look, we've got to frame this differently. Like you're trying not bring it in. It's okay, and then deal with it, park it, and embrace. You can't. It's like going, I'm 3 shots better than my handicap. I'm going to break my handicap today. I don't want to hit it in the left water, and I don't want to hit it in the right trees. I mean, where are you going to hit it? You're going to hit it one or the other. But embrace the fact that I'm going really well. I might hit it in the left trees or the right water, but you know what? That's okay if I do. What I am going to do is I'm going to give myself the best opportunity to see this shot landing down the fairway, seeing the ball flight, commit to that is going to produce that shot. That's going to give you the best opportunity to actually hit that shot. That's all we can do. So it's a lot of working with students around that sort of stuff too.
And I think as well, like you've actually got to educate a student on what consistency really is. I think a lot of people think that consistency, is what they see on TV. These guys pulling off straight shots all the time. And I set parameters, say one of my students, Ryan, in the States, around his driving. And I'm sick of him telling me, I do a 5-ball test with my students. They leave the camera rolling for 5 minutes. So 5 golf balls in a row. And I do a test, right? That way, then they can send me, I'm seeing a consistent pattern. They're not picking and choosing which ones to send to me. I just said to him today that I want you to set up these, look at the poles and the driving range and grab 5 balls, have it on record. So you've got something you're worried about me watching. And the 5 balls have got to land within, if you hit a heel cut, toe hook, pop one off the top of the face. As long as they get within those 2 poles, those 5 balls, that is a success. Don't try and get to these minute details where, I 5-yard faded that one or a 10-yard drew that one. If it's landing on that short grass, that's a victory, right?
It's what we're trying. It's what we're setting out to do, mate. You're a gun. You're a good coach. You're killing it. That's so good. I'm going to do that. I love it. let it roll for 5 balls because
Yeah.
that's you're seeing everything.
Yeah, and they
Love
can't
it.
pick and choose which ones, and you can pick a pattern. So my students will go back to the camera and say 5-yard draw or felt a bit heely, or they'll write it down, and I'll just watch it. I just watch them hit it. It goes for about 2.5 minutes, and they test themselves, and it becomes a really good way to test themselves. Alrighty, so we're coming up to the end here. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. This one's going to be a technical one, or whatever it could be anywhere. What's the number one mistake you see the recreational golfer making when trying to improve their golf game?
Number one, I think we've touched on it a lot. Whether it's that what you've just spoke about there about trying to make their golf swing perfect is probably. I'm going to say number one thing, mate, is they don't do enough performance training. They just stand on the range, golf swing look better on video rather than what you just said. Just I don't care. Get these 5 balls to land there because that's what we're judged on. As a Lucas Herbert, as a tour professional, they're paid on their performance, on their score.
Yeah.
And the more I've been out there, Toby, I remember standing at Austin for the match play, and I don't know why, but range, and there was 10 of the best players in the world. Fitzy was there with his grip. I mean, it's so bad. DJ's there.
Matthew Fitz.
And yeah, I mean, he nearly won the PGA. But you look at, I'm sitting there looking at 6 guys in the top 64 in the world swinging the golf club. I'm thinking none of them are swinging it aesthetically.
Yeah,
pleasing through impact. Every one of them. And as coaches, we've got to be a little bit aware of what are we trying to do with our students? Are we trying to make them swing it like Adam Scott, or are we trying to make them able to hit the shot to control the golf ball around the golf course? That's what I say to. That's what golf's about. Control the golf ball into the right positions around the golf course. Now, whether you do that with a little cut, or this or that, or your swing looks however. But I go back to those parameters. If you've got, within that person's parameters, really well, they're going to control the ball consistently around a golf course, be a good player.
Yeah, and I asked that question just on that topic as well, like about making a golf swing aesthetically pleasing. Is I asked a question to a lot of like young coaches coming through, or I get to help. They're obviously the recreational golf, and they'll say, when they send us a lesson, they say, I'm trying to do this. They always ask the question, why?
Why? Yeah.
You're not happy with that right elbow. Why aren't you happy with that right elbow? Do you really understand the effect it's having on the ball? Or do you just not like this is not there? Because I can show you 17 examples to why someone that right elbow can work. So we've got to understand the why and not make change just for the sake of it. And mate, I've been guilty of it. I go, this golf swing looks better, but hang on, he's shooting the same score. That's no point having a prettier looking golf swing. It's not. And
you're a gun, mate.
Hey, lastly, tell me one more thing, right? Tell me your ultimate 4-ball can't be golfers.
Oh, that's hard. I'm going to say a comedian, like a Sam Pang.
Okay.
Or a Mick Malloy, maybe. Imagine playing with those two.
Yes.
I reckon you'd have a lot of fun. And then, I don't know, someone really interesting, like that you'd have a good chat to. I'm not going to say Titian.
No way.
I don't know. Maybe let's just go 3 comedians, mate. I love a laugh. When I play golf nowadays, mate, I enjoy it more than I ever have. I don't really care how I score, how I hit it. I enjoyed playing golf as much as I do nowadays. I try and get out 9 holes on a Friday afternoon, mate.
Yeah.
Mates, and we just have so much fun, and the music's on the golf cart and the speaker, and it's just good fun. Yeah, there might be a beer or two, but it's I've never enjoyed golf. Yeah, if I was to play, it'd be guys like that, just real fun, funny guys that we have a really good time with.
I love that, Because I guess if I told you golfers, right, you're going to just say Tiger Woods, Greg Norman, Herbie. Hey, but tell
I
me,
don't
is
know.
Herbie going to win the?
Greg Norman.
Yeah, oh, you don't know. I'll talk about that one after. Hey, tell me, is Herbie going to win the US Open?
I think he's playing well enough, and the course I think is going to be good enough for him to contend. So we talk a lot about. I mean, that's his goal at the moment, is to contend in events. Now, to win's hard.
Yeah.
But if you're in contention back nine Sunday, any PGA Tour week, that's I
Yep.
guess. And the funny thing, the good thing about Herbie, when he gets in that position, the look in his eyes, mate, he's so competitive, he's so hard to beat. So you know that you know, for anyone listening, when Herbie's in contention, it's we know that from the PGA. Look at what happened,
Rita
Um,
Pereira.
Yeah, but you've got to put yourself in that position. And the thing is, when Herbie does put himself in that position, he's won 3 times, twice in Europe, once on the PGA Tour. It's like it's a chili bet, mate. He just likes to get it done.
I
So yeah,
it's
it's
yeah what
capable.
yeah, and I've spoken to you about this previously before about resetting goals with Lucas, and that's how he won in Ireland, right? Or was it Ireland or
Yeah,
was that the Dubai one? He about resetting goals,
right. First
and
one, yeah.
because to say you're going to go win, it's a bit of a blanket one. But if you can just work your way into contention, because you can see where contention is, right? You can kind of nearly measure that to a degree. Like you can see, I'm just out of it here. After round 3, I'm now in it. And then now what
Correct.
to do to win this tournament? Do I got to shoot 65 or do I got to shoot 69? You can reassess then, can't you, to kind of get the tournament?
Yeah, and I think it's something for the club golfer, social golfer to look at it also is, how many times do we drive to the golf course or would you ask you, and I do a lot, the 15 marker, what were your expectations driving the golf course Saturday? Oh, I was hoping to have 44 points. Okay. Well, that's going to happen 1 in 50 times.
Yes.
And then when you get off to the 4 hole, you've played 4 holes and you're 1 down on your handicap, and that 44 is not going to happen. Where's that leave you? So it's really important that management to, hey, let's go out and let's just try and hit some good shots and make some solid pars, some good 2 putts, and let's just build into the round. And you know what? If we threw 12 holes, 15 ourselves the opportunity to shoot 44 points, awesome, let's grab it. But I
Mm,
think with that mindset, we get such an opportunity to play around our handicap so much more consistently, and we're
yeah.
just a better player for doing it.
Yeah. And I think those got to stop looking at the score or success as a whole and set little mini goals, I guess, inside that, isn't it? Like if I have 30 putts today, I'm probably going to have a good score, or
So true.
if I hit X amount of fairways. And I've heard Sean Foley talk about that with his goal with Lydia Ko. Is someone asked him about being number 1 in the world. He said, if I can get her to be the number 1 iron player in the world, then she probably will be the number 1 player in the world. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting to hear that.
We do that with Herbie, mate. We know how good a putter he is and
I
how good
couldn't
his
believe that.
short game is. Yeah, he's unbelievable. But we also know, like, we work a lot. I think a lot of this through working with the guys at TaylorMade, and they work with Rory. And what Rory tries to do is 60% of fairways over
Mhm.
300 yards. And basically, and if Herbie does that with his short game, like, he's going to be in contention. So,
Yeah.
struggled a bit so far this year. I mean, he's had a pretty good year, really.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
we always, as a coach, particularly want it to be better.
Yeah.
And for me, I know that if we can sort of target that 60% of fairways over 300 yards, he's going to contend this, what we're working on. But again, you're breaking it down.
Mm.
You're knowing your game, you're understanding your capabilities, your
Yeah.
limitations. So how many club golfers are firing at flags here, there? It's like, just you'd be 10 times better just hitting in the middle of the green all day, every day.
Oh, we could talk about that all day long. But hey, it's been fun, Dom. It's been a lot of fun, mate. I want to pull it up there. Don't want to ramble on too long. I could talk to you all day. It's good to catch up with you, brother. It's been a while, mate. You've kind of jumped off the Instagram scene. Tell me where the people listening today, where Where can someone get a golf lesson from Dom?
Skills app, obviously, mate. You know, as you're aware, we're both on there. You're
Yeah.
killing it. You do such a great job closely there. And
Yeah.
your Instagram, mate. Yeah, I've been very quiet on social media the last 6 months or so, but you know,
Yeah.
it's still there. I still, you know, repost a few things from my students. A bit of stuff still there from, you know, last year, but nothing as good or as you know, entertaining as your Instagram account, mate. I love what you're doing. Really appreciate you asking me on today to have
Thanks,
a
man.
good chat about so many things, mate. Enjoyed it, loved it. Keep up your great work, and I can't wait to listen to episode 2.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, brother. Take care.
Speak soon, P.